Make sure I'm recording this. And all right, there we go. There's the chat. All right, anytime you guys have a question, we're going to have a space for questions. So don't worry about that. But if you have them, just drop them in the chat and I'll glance at them as I'm running through things. There are periods where I'll have questions, but I want to get through a good chunk of this stuff. And since there's only a very small amount of you guys, we can have a discussion, but just like write the notes just so you don't forget. Is that cool with everyone? Thumbs up, or I can't see you guys, but let me know if that's cool with you guys.
That's cool.
All right, awesome.
Hey, are you gonna share this recording?
Yep, everybody is going to get a recording.
Excellent.
After. Yep, this is going to be sent to you. So you don't have to get a hand cramp. Just sit back, relax. I want this to be very conversational, and we're just going to get right into the tips and tricks here. And then we'll have a discussion because you guys decided to show up, and you'll get a lot out of this. Cool?
Yeah, all right.
All right, let's go. All right, guys. So obviously, when my computer loads, okay, this is the 0 to 10K in 3 months. I've worked with so many creatives, but just to give you guys, I'm sorry I didn't even do this in the beginning because we had so much, you guys waited so much, but I'd love to just to get a feel of, and you guys can unmute. There's only, let's see, there's 3-4 of us in here. I would love to know like where you guys are from, what your guys' occupation is, just so I can know who's on the call today and I can kind of contextualize as I'm going through these things, not just from a design perspective, but for those of you who are on the call. So I'd love to just take like 5 minutes and starting with either David Arturo or Patricia, whoever wants to go first.
I'm going. I'm a BI engineer and I'm making a career as a trafficker. So that's why I'm here.
Awesome. All right, David, Tyler, Patricia. All right, cool. Shyness is okay here, guys. David, all right?
Sorry about that. I was getting everything set up. Hey, I'm David. Cool. I work as a UX strategist full-time at an agency.
Very nice.
Before that, I was working as a full-stack developer.
Very
and
cool.
Before that, as a graphic designer.
Nice. Full stack, dig it. All right, you're gonna get a lot out of this today. It's very what I teach is very contextual to that arena. Oh, Patricia, I don't think we hear you. Way too loud here. Okay, we hear you, Tyler. Enjoy your coffee in the shop. Patricia, can't really hear you. You're on mute. Maybe that will help. There we go. All right, still nothing. Maybe it's a mic thing, but and you can just type it. And I would really like that will just help me as I go through this stuff here today in our agenda. It'll help me as we get to the end. And if you guys have any questions, just type them down in the comments so I can see them as I'm running through this and I can just answer them while in context. So before we begin, there's a couple questions that I want to have you guys basically just keep in the back of your mind as we go through this. And before we begin, we're going to talk about I'm not only going to set the stage with those questions, but we're going to talk about my approach and that's been successful on Instagram, that it's allowed me not only to have followers, because I do not care and nobody really should care about followers. It's about how you leverage that to get the work in the kind of career that you want to have. So that's really important about this. In addition to that, we'll talk about how we can possibly work together. But again, this whole 1 hour and possibly 1 hour and a half is purely for the value that you guys are going to get here today. If you guys want to work with me, cool, fine. But really, you guys are going to get a lot of value of what we're going to get into today. There will be a time for questions specifically for what we've gone over. And for those of you guys who decide to sign up today, there's a bonus that's only on this webinar. But let's set the stage because I've done this with so many, other creatives and, other entrepreneurs. I really want you guys to think about why did you decide to get on this call? Why did you decide to sign up for what we're about to go on today? Are you trying to, at a crossroads in your career? Are you flatlining in, whatever it is you're trying to approach? What exactly motivated you to get on this call today? Why is now the time that you're interested? Because, what we're going to these are just things that we're going to be talking about today. I want you guys to just keep in the back of your mind, like, where were you before this call, why this is an important time for you, and what exactly you guys want to get out of this by the end of today. And in addition to that, I also want you guys to keep in mind, like, what have you done, what's worked, what hasn't, in addition to what you've seen in your industry that has worked, and really what you're trying to avoid, because we're going to talk about all these things that I have done and the exercises that I've done to basically answer these questions for myself. But I also want you guys to also keep these in the back of the mind, in your back of your mind, so that when I go through these things, you have good questions at the end of this for me to answer. Cool? And you guys can just do a thumbs up in the chat if you're good on that, or you can just write hi, whatever it's your fancy. But I just want you guys. All right, cool. I want you guys to keep that in the back of your mind as we get into this today. So let's also, now that we've talked a little bit about like past, present, and like future, I really want to understand like where you guys are wanting to go. Like, I want you guys in your mind, and just think about it for a minute. If you had 1 million followers, or you had a very large platform, what exactly, what would that do for your business? What would that do for your brand? Like, just think about that as we're going through this, because again, a lot of people come to me and they're like, oh, I just want 1 million followers, you know, but they have no idea what that's going to do for them. So for right now, just to set the stage, think about where you are right now. What crossroads are you at? What are you struggling with? What have you done? What haven't you done? And if you do get, you know, the perfect platform for yourself, what exactly are you going to get out of that in regards to return on investment? So just have that in the back of your mind as we're talking. But really what, you know, we're going to get into, and really what I want you guys to understand is I get it. I understand what it's like to surf. The internet is so big. There's too much shit to learn. And it gets really anxiety inducing when you have Gary Vee saying some shit one day, you have all these gurus on the internet saying you got to do another, and you end up doing like 7 to 10 things and they don't really pan out. So with that said, I know what it's like to also not have the business opportunities or the career opportunities just because you're not visible to the people you want to work with. If you guys don't know my backstory, I spent 4 years on basically carpet, eating peanut butter jelly and salmon, working for below minimum wage as a designer. So to being able to work with now brands such as Disney, Dannon, I almost said donut, Disney, Dannon, Adobe, LG, you know, enough name dropping, but you know, being or having a platform really allows you to do a lot of things and have control over your career. And that's what I want to talk about today, not about followers. All right. So for those of you guys, you may or may not know exactly, I don't know how long you guys have been following, but what I care about for you guys to get out of this today is to understand we're only going to talk about 3 things. It's understanding right attention, dream clients, and career control. I've said this probably the last 20 minutes, but you know, in the last 18 months, I've been able to go gain an audience over 70,000, and again, worked with some very large brands out here. The slide is kind of cut off. All right, let me see. Can you guys see the slide? You see it? Dave sees it fine. Tyler, you good? All right. Moving on. But basically, all I want you guys to understand is those 3 things. How can I gain the right attention? How can I work with the people who I want to actually work with? And how can I use this platform that we're going to be talking about building? How can I use it to control my career? Again, this is just showing you guys where I am currently right now. If you found your way on this, you probably see this. But I'm out 77,000 as of right now, growing at a very fast pace. So just to set, again, the stage, the number one thing I find that people that I've worked with or who I talk with, the misunderstanding for people is they spend time on too many things. They try to figure out, you know, what can I do, whether it's ads, whether it's giveaways, 20 different things that people say on the internet works. They try to do all those things. And again, what we're going to be talking about is focusing on a very few tasks that allow you to grow. So again, like I said, the only thing that we're going to worry about is gaining the right attention, dream clients, and career control. So again, trying things like ads. Yes, ads work. Giveaways work. Staying on Instagram all day works. But doing all of this is not time it's not time sensitive. People have families, people have jobs, people have businesses to run, and spending your entire life on Instagram just to build a platform makes no sense. So we're going to talk about low cost, low time ways of actually building a platform online. So like I said, these are great ways of doing things, but we're not going to worry about it for right now. We're only going to work and really talk about what I know 100% works. Hey, Max, if you could mute really quick. Thank you. Appreciate it. We'll have time for questions. You were very excited. I don't know if you were clapping or whatnot, but I appreciate it if you were. We're going to have time for questions, but I appreciate if you just, for right now, if you have questions while we're running through this, just put them in the chat and we'll go over them in just a bit. So let's actually start talking about Instagram. This is what we're here for. So my main methodology, you're good, Max. The main methodology around how I think about Instagram is 5 things. And if you guys are in marketing, if you're in design, if you're any sort of creative or branding industry, you understand these things, but we're going to contextualize it in terms of what it means for Instagram. So we have brand messaging, we have understanding our market in space, we have content, which is the sweet sauce or my secret sauce. And we're going to spend a lot of time in talking about content and how to actually go about finding content, not necessarily creating, but finding content that actually allows you to build a community and facilitate a conversation rather than spending so much damn time creating shit. The reason I want to say that is we're going to go through a couple of exercises that you guys can do to actually pump out content on a semi-regular basis without having to kill yourself spending 5 to 8 hours creating your own original content. So we're also going to talk about how to get found and also actively work with the clients you dream of working with. So with that said, we're going to start off with brand messaging. Okay, so for those of you guys, this is basic stuff, but we're going to contextualize it to Instagram in just a second. Brand messaging is who you say you are, who others say you are, but also help people understand exactly if you're the right person that they're looking for. So we're going to just hop over to Instagram really quick, and I want to talk about 2 things in just a second. So first thing, we're going to talk about the username and the actual name on Instagram. First off, I just want to talk about search engine optimization. For those of you guys who don't know, is Instagram on some level is just like Google, right? If you type anything in Google, if you type in user interface, if you type in designer, it's going to surface up any sort of topic or article or link that is relevant to your search. Same thing with Instagram, right? If you type in the search box, just how I had design there, for this instance, we'll put in UI. It will take into account the people who have UI both in their username, but also in their name. As you see, this UI Helen is actually somebody who I talk to on the regular, and quite a few other people who are in my niche. They started doing this, reason being because I've talked to them about this, this search function, and now, more and more people are doing it. So what I want you guys to get out of this is, regardless of what you're trying to position yourself for, or what exactly you believe your audience on the Instagram platform may search, you would put that either in your username, but more importantly, your name on Instagram, right? This, if I didn't have it, it would just be my name, right? But I have UI, UX in strategy because I want to come up under that specific term. Sadly, well, not sadly, my podcast is higher than me right now, which is totally fine, but this changes based on competitiveness every day, just like Google does. Right now, one of the kings is right now his name is Vlad, but UI Gradient. I've learned a lot of my stuff from him as well. And we're going to talk about him a little bit later today. But first off, if you're in design, if you are in another industry, if you're doing cats, super simple, just to have a non-design related example. All right, not Kathy, cats. Come on, Instagram. All right, let's do cats. So you have not for cats, cats of Instagram, cats of, it's all cats related and whatever is closest to cats. So I highly recommend that you have some sort of Exactly. Keyword stuffing, David. Think about that when it comes to your username and your name. But if you want to just have, like, example, a lot of people like myself, they don't have UX or UI in the name. I want that brand recognition that's closer to my name, and I'll just keyword stuff it in my actual name, because I mean, this is really what matters to me. I don't want UX in there. I want my name in there. So if you can find a way, it's a trade-off. You can do UX or UI, just like Helen did, for example. She has UI and in both her username and in her name on Instagram. So that's just one thing to think about. Think about what your audience may be searching for. Use that term in your name and in your username. So that's one. Step two is the bio, okay? Just like any sort of ad, any sort of marketing, advertising, when someone finds you, whether through search or through a piece of content, the first thing that they're going to come upon is your bio. They're not, even if they do find you through a piece of content, they're going to come to your page because they like the content. They're going to be like, all right, who served this up? And then now it's like, okay, who is this person? Okay, I did not mean to click that. Technical difficulties. Let's go back. Not the link tree. We don't need to buy anything from myself. All right. So the main thing that I find is highly important is, what is it that you do? I'm a designer. I do strategy. I'm a consultant. I'm a host of Design Huddle Time. I'm an Adobe Insider. This is who I've worked with. And here's a call to action for my link. Okay. There's a whole bunch of other people who, and this is not that bad. All right. This is still pretty specific. Dennis, product designer and creator of products for digital designers, awards, young judge. Here's his website, I'm assuming. But what I really would like to do, what I think would make this a lot better, is just like how I have it on mine, right? Gain attention and work with your dream clients, arrow down, here's the link. And mine is a little bit more ambiguous, right? It's a linktree.com or a linktree or whatever it is. It's a Linktree link. People might not know what that is, but I have to have a call to action. I have to have, what is it that I do? What are my accolades? And a call to action for my link. Don't just leave it there. Don't think people will click on your link just because they have to have a reason and understanding as to what is on the other side of that link that is of value to them. So for me, if you want to, or for my audience, if you want to gain attention and work with your dream clients, click this link. That is what is on the other side of that link that they can expect. I'm setting that expectation before they click, and that's what you want to do. So the two things here is the keywords. What is your audience looking for? How can you put that into your name and your username? Step two, how can you explain to people what is it that you do, why you're of value to them, what are some accolades, and what makes you unique? And if you do have a link in your bio, what exactly can they expect from clicking on that link? A call to action. Okay. So that is about it for brand messaging. Those are the only two things that I care for you guys to care about. That is on the technical side, but also from a communication side for those people who are coming to see you, whether they found you through search or through content. All right. So, excuse me, my eye is itchy. Hold it. Okay. All right. So market in space research. Again, super simple stuff. What happened, Arturo? Does the keyword work on the Finder? I mean, in the description. 1 second. We're gonna hold that question. I dig it. Let's leave it to the end because I need a little bit more context. We'll go back to it. Just remember, and when we get to the question segment, we'll get on it. All right. So market in space. Again, like everybody knows this. It's talked about all on the internet, but we're gonna give some actionable tips and an exercise for you guys to do. So, who is your audience? Where is your audience? What does your audience like? And by understanding this helps you engage with the right people and create the right content. So how exactly do we do this? Sorry, guys, my eye is burning. All right, saw all that screen. I need some, what is it? Blue reflective, blue reflective glasses. All right, so let's get into this. Who your audience is, where are they, what do they like? Okay, a very simple exercise I did for myself when I started doing this is by looking up, just like I use UI, right? I want us to start here. The reason I have UI and UX is because I learned it from my predecessors, the people who were already the top dogs in the industry before I got started. And these were UI design patterns, daily web design, and UI gradient. Okay. And I saw a pattern. I saw they all used UI. There was some sort of keyword related. There was web design, and I saw UI. And when I was like, why do they have this? So I put in the search bar UI, and I found out that everybody with UI or UX kind of popped up because those things are similar and are related. And with that, I started utilizing it as some of my tactics, but also what I noticed was since these people are in my niche, not only did so I found one or two, right? I already knew UI design and I already knew, UI design patterns and I already knew UI gradient. But then when I typed in UI, I found all these other accounts. So I saw UI-UX, I saw UI Bucket, UIX Ninja. And what I did is I just opened up all the accounts, right? And what I'm trying to do by doing this, what I'm trying to achieve is I'm trying to figure out, these are the people in my niche. What exactly do they post that my specific audience likes, and how can I kind of recreate that or position myself to create and or reshare content that is in the same likability zone of the same audience? And how can I you just switch it up a little bit to make it a little bit more unique than what is already out in there in the audience? So when I kind of, had that thought and I started looking at these other Instagram pages, basically I was like, oh, these guys are basically just glorified Pinterest boards, but on Instagram. And then I was like, oh. And so I just saw this was a trend. It was just like a whole bunch of resharing. Some people, like, this is a little bit more of a personal page, but he never shows his face. But it was just like very large or reshared content. And I was like, oh, this is being bothersome. I do not want to. It keeps blocking me from my webpage. All right. There we go. And I just noticed people were resharing other people's work. So it was like a Pinterest board. And so what I took from that was, UI Gradient, he reshares tips. So there was basically a glorified Pinterest board. There were tips and tricks being shared for designers. And there was a third type of content type in this niche. For example, the personal brand, the designer or Dorian, he not only creates tips, he shows his work, but also he has like a personal aspect to it, or more so than the other brands do or the other pages do. So with that, now that I kind of have like a scope or an understanding of what is in my niche on Instagram, the people who are I'm competing against, or basically I'm competing an audience with, or they're in the same community, I got an understanding of the three types of content that do really well. And I know they do really well because they have 3,000 likes, they have 5,000 likes, 2,000. It's all about finding the patterns. So once I figure out, okay, the top dogs who are in the space, awesome, check. I have like 10 of them. Now I need to figure out which type of their content works best for them. Their designs, in Dorian's case, they get the least likes. His tips, I've seen them do pretty well. I know they're in the thousands, 2,000 range, but his personal stuff, they're pretty damn good, right? So in that mind, now that I have that, a lot of people think, Brandon, are you telling me to just like do what they did and take pictures of myself and reshare content? I'm like, no, this is just getting us a scope and an understanding what's out there in the market and figuring out, okay, do any of the things that I see, do they align with what I want to do? And in my case, it's a little bit different now, but in my case, to cut out time, because I had a day job, I had other, I had other things to take care of. I just opted for, okay, thank you, Zoom. Thank you for the gift. I just opted to do the resharing for quite a bit of time. And that allowed me to gain traction very easily. I was able to share 2 to 3 posts a day with 30 minutes of time. And that allowed me to gain what is now, I have about 235,000 people that brush across my Instagram per week. So all I want you guys to get out of that is to know who your audience is, figure out what the landscape is in your niche, where your audience is, who are they following, right? understand within that, what is your audience like? Figure out the content types. So who's your audience? Figure that out by where your audience is currently chilling on Instagram. Who do they follow? And what, by following them, do they kind of get for themselves? What type of content do they like? And kind of put that out back into the market in your own way. So that's what I want you guys to get out of that. Whew, I need water. All right, give me a sec. And again, if you guys have any questions on each piece, do not be afraid to drop those things in the comments down below. I know there's going to be a lot before we get, there's just going to be a lot in general. So if you need to remember, either write them down or put them in the description. Or excuse me, not the description. There's too much videos, but in the chat. All right, so content. This is the biggest thing that we're going to talk about today. We're going to kind of gloss over it at first, just so we can get through the other 5 tips, and then, or the 5 pillars, and then we can get into this and then into our questions. All right, so the only thing I care about for content for you guys to understand is bringing the right value. We know this because we've done the exercise to figure out what our audience likes. Bringing the right, now that we know what the right value is, are we bringing it to the right people? This is the reason I want to say this, is because when people try to start this, especially with their current audience, people are like, well, I did the market research, but my audience that I now have, my 300 followers or whoever that I have, when they start implementing this, they're like, they don't like the stuff that I saw worked. And I'm like, that's because what you were doing previously was not in alignment with the strategy and all the research that you did now. You now have to create an entire new audience based on the research that you've done, because the audience that you've gained before that might be your mom, your dad, your cousins, your family, and they might not necessarily like the new stuff that you're putting out. So these are things to think about. Are you creating the right content for the right people? And are you able to do it fast enough? This is one of the biggest things that I fight with creatives on the regular, because they come to me and they're like, Brandon, I spend 5 to 8 hours on a video, 5 to 8 hours on this amazing design, and the shit gets like 2-3 likes on Instagram. Help me. And so what I teach a lot about, and why I brought up these examples of, UI design patterns, UI or UI UX, in these people, is because it's not bad to be a curator, right? I think that gets a bad rap because people in creatives think that they're stealing. But I really want you through this entire, this entire conversation we're having today. I want you guys to shift your mind from, creating a personal brand to creating a community, okay? And we'll get into talking about facilitating a conversation versus building your personal brand, because you have to, when you're doing stuff like this, you're trying to build a platform, you're building a community. You're not building for yourself, you're building for more than yourself. And what we're going to be talking about here today, when we get to the in-depth of the content, we'll explain a little bit more why it's better for your long-term to think about community versus how can I get myself more out there. And the reason that is important is because when you approach it that way, you're thinking audience first rather than yourself first. So I just want to put that there. All right. So like I said, we're going to talk about this a little bit more in depth in just a second, but we're going to just get on over to how to get found. And really what this is the language of Instagram. It's the hashtags. A lot of people, they're like, Brandon, what is the hashtag game? What the fuck? What is the secret sauce? And I'm just like, all right, it's not that magical. It's very simple. It's literally just about testing things in and out. And if you have no hashtag strategy, I'm going to just give you one like right today. And it's super simple. Like if you guys know me, I'm very simple. I don't like to do complex. I like to do very simple, actionable things. So literally, and a lot of people may tell you not to do this, but the way I got my hashtags that allow me to get like, I'm not even sure if I can show you insights on these things. Let's see. I cannot. Yeah, I don't think so. But I get a shitload of, let's see, insights only on mobile. Yes, you are correct, Dave. I wish I could. But on things like this, like the hashtags on these, I literally copied and pasted these from the people who were the top dogs in the industry. All I did was, I was like, oh, all right, UI design patterns, he's the shit. What does he use? I'm not sure if he uses any anymore. Oh, he does. I put this in a spreadsheet. He said, boom, copy paste brand hashtags from now on. No, for real. Like a lot of people, they put too much thinking into this. And it literally is a 2-step process. Copy from the best, put it in your shit. Does it work? Yes or no? And then, just a step 2 to this, I literally put all the top dogs. If you want to be a little neurotic about this and take it a step further, if you want to be a little bit more meticulous about this, is I took UI design patterns hashtags, I took UI UX patterns, or whatever his name is, took his hashtags. I just took the top people's hashtags, put them in a spreadsheet, and I just tested for a whole week. I tested just this guy's hashtags. Next week, I tested somebody else's hashtags. Next week, I tried somebody else's, and I compared the effectiveness of all of them, and the one that did best, I stuck with that one. And then I finally started sprinkling in new hashtags to see if it affected it. So it's about testing. First, copy some person who is already like top of the game, and then take about just start with 5 accounts, copy their hashtags, start with one set for 1 week, another set for another week, and then so on and so forth till you've done the 5. Figure the ones that done the best for you, and then from there, start adding in and subtracting other hashtags. The cap, I personally use, I'm not even sure if there's a number. I know if you spam with the hashtags, they don't show up, but I just stick to between 29 and 30 and just make sure that I use a hashtag remixer so that Instagram doesn't see that I'm like copy and pasting hashtags, because I have seen when I copy and paste from my notes, I don't get shown in hashtags. I don't know what that is. I'm not going to speculate, but just make sure you're using a remixer of your hashtags, and you can just simply go on the internet and just type in hashtag remixer, and all it does is you hit the shuffle button and it just remixes the hashtags for you. So copy, test, and make sure to remix. Okay. Super simple. Nothing too complicated. It's not a huge science. And when we get to the questions, I'll show you guys the hashtag remixer. I just want to make sure we get all the essentials so we can give you guys the max amount of time possible for questions. All right. So reaching out to your audience. Now, this is the active approach, okay? Everything we've talked about, from brand messaging, from understanding your audience through your research and content creation, and finally, the hashtag game. What I want you guys now, that's like the passive setup, understanding your audience, understanding how you're communicating to them. And finally, once you have that set up, when people know what you do, when they know what to expect of you through, your bio and your content, now it's time to, once that's all set up, reaching out to the people that you actually want to work with. Okay. So now that we've understanding your audience, you know where they hang out, and now it's time to find the right people and bring them to you. This is the active approach. Okay. And you can think about this very similar to LinkedIn. LinkedIn, you have your entire profile, and people can either find you or you can approach people for business, just like cold email. The thing that I like about Instagram is that I always tell this story. For those of you guys who, I'm very tight with Adobe. I'm an Adobe insider. But before I even started working with them, the head of Adobe social media, I tried to approach him on LinkedIn. Too busy on LinkedIn, right? But he has thousands of people just like in his inboxes and trying to pitch him all day. But on Instagram, he has like 300 followers. Not noisy at all. It's a lot more personal of a platform. So once you kind of have your entire content set up, you know that when your audience comes and finds you, your content is gonna be what they like. So that when you go out and start messaging people, and before they even message you back, they look at your profile, they're like, oh, Brandon is a designer, he's a consultant, he's a strategist. Oh, he's he works with Adobe, he's worked with LG, Disney, and he does all these cool things outside of just design. He has a podcast, et cetera, et cetera. And from that, they can say, oh, he's a good fit or he's not a good fit. And then if I'm a good fit, I've checked subconsciously, check boxes in their mind to see, do they want to work with me or do they not want to work with me? And then from there, you know, they can look at my content, see if I'm even more fit. They can figure out how we can work together. But there's a lot more context on Instagram than any other platform. And it's the major key thing here is that it's personal, right? A lot of people, they are on Instagram for family. They're not doing business there. So it's very easy to slide in, have a personable conversation. You have that context, whether it's your work, whether it's your the value provided of your personal brand, all being told on your page. And by reaching out to somebody, they can see all that in just one click of your name. So that's why I like Instagram, because a lot of other places are noisy, and the people who have dollars and don't have the time, a lot of them don't have very strong Instagram profiles. And you know, this is just, I forget who says this, maybe it's Ryan Holiday. If you don't know that name, look it up. Very good book and a very good author. Books, plural. But he talks a lot about going to the platform that has the least amount of, that is the least noisy to get to the attention of the person you're trying to work with. And for me and a lot of the people that I work with currently, that channel that was the least noisy was Instagram. And I have a lot more of a personal connection with them now, rather than on LinkedIn, where LinkedIn people expect business, and emails people expect business. On Instagram, even though there could be some business happening there, but it's a lot more, a DM, just like a text, is a lot more personable. All right. So basically all I wanted to get off there was that Instagram is a lot less noisy than the other platforms and is a lot more personable. And if you have the other 4 pillars you've talked about set, when you DM somebody, they can check out everything that embodies you as a personal brand or as a company, and they can figure out if you guys are a good fit to work together. Tyler, the sauce. All right, so let's talk about the sauce. So a lot of people, like I mentioned before, I grew my following with 0 original content. I posted 2 to 3 times a day. The sauce. 2 to 3 times a day. I did not spend more than 30 minutes on Instagram. Again, my strategy is utmost value and impact with the least amount of my time and resources. And so instead of original content, I curated and facilitated a conversation. So how can you do the same? And there's these, if you guys forget anything else that we've talked about here today, I want you guys to remember this. Understand what your message is and what you're trying to put out into the world. Find content that already exists that you can still tell your story with and facilitate a conversation. And how can you do the first 2 and generate attention with very little time allocated to this, right? So when I say this, people are like, they kind of get confused. They're like, well, in the example that I used, I was talking to a web designer and he was like, well, what if I want to, he threw something random at me. He was like, what if I want to be a donut web designer only for donut shops? How the fuck am I going to find content for that? And I was like, look, listen, the only thing that I want you to care about is what is your message, right? And in this case, it's communicating to donut shops that you are a bomb-ass donut shop web designer. And you want to use already made content that showcases this skill. So how can you curate content that best shows this? We went over to Dribbble and I said, you're about to owe me like a year's worth of content. So I literally and the reason I'm using Dribbble, guys, is because I understand, I use Dribbble on a daily basis for my content, and I trust it as a source for my content. But if you're not a designer, if you're in a total another field, all I'm saying is find your platform that allows you to curate content that you need. And I'll show you guys an example of that. So I just typed in donut. Bear with. Went to product design. You already see there's a shitload of donuts. All right, let it refresh. And you probably have, if this were, and I said you probably have a year's worth of content in regards to donut design. There's animation, there's user interface design of donuts. And so basically what I was trying to communicate to him, it was that all you need to do is find a content curation source that you can trust, that you know exactly what's going to be on there. And that makes me hungry. So that you can basically go on this platform, take content, repurpose it for your story. And another example I like to use that's not design related is, this is a good one. I'm going to open up a new tab. When I open up a new tab, I have a plugin that's called Muesli. Again, this is a designer thing, but what I do for my podcast, which is totally a different type of content, is it's very hard to think about new content pieces every day, especially if you're a daily content creator. There's things like TechCrunch, designer news, videos, and basically what I like to do is I like to go to TechCrunch or any other the blog articles, and I see what's happening in the world. Twitter banning political ads. Zuckerberg defends political ads. I now have about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. These are 9 different things I can talk about on the podcast without me having to think about original content. It's about understanding what's hot out in the world, proven content, and then using that to tell your story, right? Or in the narrative that you want. So I can see, oh, Apple beats on Q4 earnings, and I can read this article and be like, these are my thoughts about it. And this is what I want to say on this bit. And I now have a new podcast. Same thing with these donut things, right? I can even see, okay, let's see how good this post did. I do not feel like signing up right now. But basically, you can search by popular right here. The ones up here are the most popular. Granted, some of these don't have donuts, but this is top in the popular. So you don't have to go and figure out, oh, what is my audience going to like? No, this is proven content. This is already popular. The internet says so. Take that into your platform. It has a higher chance of being, popular than you starting from scratch and trying to figure out what your audience at random is going to like. All right. So what this does for you is, through curation, these are the main things that it does for you. It allows you to drive traffic consistently through daily posting. Okay. Imagine creating content, good quality content on the daily, right? And another example I use is imagine designing this donut shit from scratch. I can already tell you that's going to take me a while. And I'm going to spend all that time doing that. I'm going to have to post it. I'm going to have to write a caption for it. And then I'm going to be anxious about the results. Don't do that. Find the good content, post it. Only, takes 30 minutes. Talk about it in your own unique voice and how it serves your narrative, what exactly you want your audience to get out of it. And then just let it do its thing. It's there for traffic purposes, just like an ad. You want to run traffic, and again, it saves you time. And we'll go back to the ad thing in a second. I'm going to use my Instagram account as an example. It saves time by finding a content source to repurpose that content source, or to repurpose that content to serve your narrative online in your platform. And again, a big thing, the content is proven to already be popular. A lot of people design things or they output original content thinking they love it themselves, but the audience might not love it. And they've spent all this time and resources creating that shit. And, it's a detriment to them. They spent all this time, all these resources on something that may or may not work. They have no idea. It's at random. So by doing things that are already proven content, not only saves you time, but it also helps you drive a large amount of traffic. For instance, the reason I always get this question, Brandon, why do you curate? And the thing is I pepper in these things here. This is what my audience loves. They love animation. So 20,000 people love this post. This was just one of the posts of the day. But then these people are also coming into, again, my podcast is just brand new. And I want to use that traffic of the people that are loving these designs to also come and learn about my new podcast or whatever else it is that I'm trying to push. So you can use this community building of, in my case, I'm having a community of designers. They love to see their work shown and reach way more people that they could on their own. But in addition to that, I'm also adding value with some of my own personal brand in educating. So think about it like that. What can you curate, but also pepper in some of your personal brand stuff to grow your, that side of the platform. So think about what's going to bring in traffic and how can I bring that traffic and translate them into a customer or a brand follower. So think about that. All right. So these are the strategies that have worked really well for me. Obviously, I was able to go from 0 to 70,000 in 18 months. And, I've seen a lot of people teaching these Instagram courses, and there's all these, me and Tyler were talking about this earlier, hacks, automations. There's a lot of dirty tricks that used to work, but Instagram has cracked the fuck down on them. And to be honest, what the experts are teaching or are old. I really focus on content strategy and how to serve out content for a particular audience on a fast-paced basis that keeps the value high, but keeps your time and resources really low, because this is something that will basically win the test of time. You don't have to do any new tactical thing or technical thing, because that is always going to be, fought on by the people at Facebook, the people at Instagram. Those are like the short-term hacks that either get you penalized, get you deleted. They're very risky and they take a long time to kind of understand them. So these are the basics, but the basics work. Ooh, I'm sweating in here, all the lights. All right, so like I was saying, the real question is, how can this benefit you if you implement these strategies? And just for an example, some of the people who have, actually taken my advice, the results speak for themselves. This is one of my most recent clients. He's worked with me only for, I think at the time of his results, like not just numbers wise, but actually making money. Ethan Soro, he's now at 8K, but he got to 8K in his third month. And obviously design is highly saturated. I'm in the shit and I'm just like, things are getting out of hand. But really what we were able to do with him is we went from under 100 followers to 8K in 9 weeks, 3 months. And we got him not only to that platform size, he's straight out of college, but we got potential clients reaching out to him. He made over 10,000 in his first 9 weeks. And I remember when he first signed up for my one-on-ones, he was absolutely scared. He was like, I got to talk to my girlfriend about, the money we're about to put into this. But he made 9 times back what he put in. So I'm very proud of him. And so, like I said, the strategies that we're talking about here is how can we drive traffic with the least amount of time and resources? How can we gain the attention of the right people who we want to gain as a customer? On another thing, this doesn't just work for designers and creatives. This is another client of mine. Her name is Jamie Pinder. She's a Olympia contestant. She's a very strong girl. But what we did with her is, again, fitness, all the fitness models in general, very saturated online on the Instagram world. But again, we focused on gearing her content to the right people. And by doing that, we grew her audience we worked with her, we got her basically a double. We grew her audience from 20K to over 40,000 at the time of this shot. She's way over this audience amount now, but she was approached by Marvel Studios to be in one of their movies, which is absolutely awesome. But that wasn't even part of her goals. We actually got her to grow her supplement partnerships and gain more partnerships for her shows, which were a big deal for her. And that's what she came to us for. So the tactics and strategies here are not just for design. It's for way more. It's very general and anybody can get these sort of results. Again, attention of the right people is key. And that's what I'm sure everybody on this call is looking for. So with that said, speaking of crowded, in all the Ty Lopez people who say you can make $1 million in your sleep, I have a good friend. Her name is Kate Bagoy. We started with her at under 100 followers. She's a business coach. And here's the thing. It's not just about designers. It's not just about bodybuilders looking for partnerships. Kate deals with very large startups where they're working with way beyond $1 million. Each one of her clients, her one-on-one coaching starts at $10,000. And so really what I want you guys to get from this is that Instagram is good for people who are starting like Ethan, anybody like, you know, Jamie Pinder, who is outside of design in a totally different industry, and somebody who has a high value skill like Kate Bagoy, who's consistently gaining clients through Instagram and getting known from this platform using the tactics that, you know, we've been talking about here. And currently she's turning away people because she just has that much attention right now. And so many other people I've worked with, from Google, from obviously Daily Web Design, vouchers for my Instagram course, and so many more. Anyway, I want you guys to roll back to the first question I asked you guys, what it would be like to have 1 million followers. What would that do for your platform? What would that do for your business? How can you leverage that platform to gain the career control that you want and actually move yourself into the life and or job that you want to create for yourself? So I wanted you guys to think big, think about what's possible, and that I've really been able to help people go from no audience to 10,000 in just a matter of weeks. And not just that, not the platform, but how to monetize, how to get clients to reach out to you, how to gain partnerships. Those are very important to me. So again, if you were able to grow your audience from 10K, 20K, I want you guys to think about how is that meaningful for your business. And for those of you guys who said yes, or those of you guys who are just like, Brandon, to the questions, we're just going to slide by this really, really quick. And if you guys care about it, cool. If not, we'll get straight to the questions. But, you know, why I have my online Instagram program is because a lot of the people I've worked with have taken shitty courses on Udemy, and they're like, Brandon, I paid X amount of dollars for this course. I learned jack shit. I need a high touch program, and really to be handheld to understand what exactly what are the action steps. And again, just like you guys noticed here, I'm not just telling you fluffy ass shit. I'm telling you exercises to actually do to figure out who your audience is, what you need to do, and your next step. I'm very about that because I always try to be the teacher I wish I had when I was younger, because I was terrible at school. So, so cheap courses, no result. And my program is not, even though what we're going to be talking about today is self-paced, there is a hand-holding component to it, and there's a group associated with it. So I do have an online course that you guys can, I'm just going to put it in the chat for now, but if you want to check it out, cool. If not, don't worry about it, but I'm going to just throw this in the chat for now. And basically what's in it is 55 classes of in-depth brand building and tactics and strategies, a lot more in-depth and actionable items than what we went over today. And, you know, on top of that, there's 2 monthly office hours meetings that, you know, regardless of that are past the test of time. If you guys finish the course and you guys continuously show up to the office hours just to check in or ask any other questions, those are my time for the people in my audience group who are trying to learn, not only build their brand, but who have any sort of questions on how to grow, how to be a better designer. That is the time I have open to answer any questions for an hour. That's a really big value piece, part of this, not only to learn how to build your brand, but the office hours and that access to me to ask any personal questions. And also the private community with other students where you can conversate amongst one another. All right, now obviously this shit is not $1 million. It's literally $197. But for you guys, like I said, if you guys sign up today, it's gonna be $97. So like I said, this is an investment to both your career, your business, what exactly you wanna build for yourself. So really all I'm saying is if you guys do sign up today, you'll get access to the pre-recorded program, the dashboard, the two monthly hours, office hours, and access to the private group with the students. So with that said, we can ask questions. If you guys want to get signed up today, the code is brand building on the site. So if you guys go into here, get started now. You guys can also check out all the things that are in the course here. There's a lot more detailed information of what you guys are going to get. You guys can see the entire There's a lot of curricula in here, but you guys can look for yourself what's in it. And if you sign up today with the code, it's only $97. But enough of that. I want to get to your questions and finally get them answered. So you guys can unmute yourself. I'm going to drink some water and we can, there we go.
Oh,
What's up?
I left the cafe just to get on the call on the questions.
Cool. All right. You first, Tyler. What do you got?
Sweet. Yeah. In terms of hashtags, I'm sure like it's probably going to be discussed in the paid course, but I usually think that like going lower in terms of hashtags would be less. Like it would obviously get less people, but it would need to be targeted. So like 100K to 500K on each hashtag.
Yep.
Would be a good range.
Yep. I'm going to answer that question right now. And you are correct. That is in the course, but I'm just going to give you guys the answer since you guys came and showed up. So, sorry. So I'm actually going to just demonstrate it here. So with, just like you were saying, let's take a look at these hashtags really quick. So I do a variety. So I do 10, 10, and 10. And what I mean by that is I do 10 hashtags that are between like 100 and a couple thousand. And then I do like a mid-tier where they're like, you know, still not super huge. They're like around 100,000, 500,000. And then I do another tier where it's just like 500,000 plus. Because again, there is some like Russian roulette into this. There's not a specific science to this. I just know that just like you were saying, you know, it's a numbers game. You have 10 hashtags that can really arbitrage into hashtags that are not super competitive. And then when you start, just again, think about Google. When you start ranking for those keywords and Instagram sees you dominating those spaces, they'll start pushing you up into the mid-tier and allow you to compete into the higher tier pieces. I remember this is how I was able to compete in the very large hashtags of like, what is it? Hashtag creative or hashtag design inspiration. It's a lot more competitive now, but again, you want to kind of have that variety so you can dominate a space. And as you gain more attention or more engagement on that content, Instagram will be like, oh, this person is not only dominating X space, but they're also gaining a lot of attention, and they'll allow you to populate those different and more competitive hashtags.
Yeah, no, that makes so much sense. Yeah, thanks for that, man.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, like I posted I think a month ago with hashtags like pretty much in the 100 to 200, 300K range, and after like 3 hours, I only got one like.
Yeah.
I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that. I'm just gonna visualize it for you guys right now. So if you guys are still watching the screen, come on, computer. All right. So what, guys, if you guys don't really recall what we're talking about, so Adobe Insiders. And another thing, I talk about this in depth, and I give you guys a case study in the course. But this is actually how I got to be seen by Adobe, in addition to LG. So you'll see some brands, they'll use specific brand hashtags, but nobody uses them, and they very seldom do them themselves. And what I did basically is. All right, well, we're going to talk about this first, and then we'll jump to what I'm trying to talk about. All right, so 2,000 posts, not competitive at all. This is a very good, if it's relatable to what you see people are using hashtag-wise in your niche, and it's not really competitive, but you see it being used, it might be a good thing for you to add that into your hashtag strategy. Reason being, it's because it's relatable and it's not very competitive. Now, if we look at shit like this, and stuff changes all the time. You have to, UI design, this shit is almost at 1 million. When I started, that was like maybe 2,500 or 25,000, right? So things get saturated, and all the time new hashtags get created. For instance, and by the way, this was what we're talking about. Very competitive. This is something that would be in like that third tier that is very, or really the second tier that's between like 100,000 and 500,000.
Mhm.
Let's see. Yeah, 66 million. This would be in that third category. That's just like because all the big dogs are here. The people who have like a shitload of a following, even though that's 1,000 likes. Let's see who this is. Still pretty large following. So even though it has to deal, it's not a specific science, but it has to do with the people who are on the explore page. It has to do with engagement and the size of their following. So it's still, you're competing with some pretty big dogs, even though it's just 1,000 likes. They get prioritized because they are a larger audience. And again, this would anything under the first one, the what is it? What did we do first?
Adobe Insiders.
Yeah, Adobe Insiders, that would be like tier 1, that's very non-competitive. Tier 2 is anything between 100,000 and 500,000, and anything over 500,000 to like 1 million plus, that's like my tier 3, and I do 10 for each sort of pool.
Awesome. Thanks, man. That definitely really helps. Yeah. Kind of gauge the playing field a little bit more. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. And I am going to show you guys, let's see. Forgetting the, oh, here we go. No, it's not what I wanted. So I'm gonna give you guys a little bit of case study of what exactly I did to work with LG. So this was about a year ago. This was just a total other account. This was my tester account. And what I did was I basically, let's see. I stole somebody's hashtags. I didn't do anything too special. And all I did was I set up an automation to where, and I explain the entire case study in the course as well. I basically set an automation for this account to post 3 times a day with the hashtags of not only the hashtags that I stole from the top dogs like PC gaming, but also the hashtags of, let's see. There was a particular LG one. I forget when I stopped doing it because it was a while after I got the partnership with them. But basically, I just constantly blasted the LG hashtag, and they could not keep, because they barely used it. It was like maybe a couple thousand people using it, or it was really them. So I was blasting their brand hashtag with my content. So when their social people went to go check how their hashtag was doing, they only saw my content. And not only was I really just dominating this space because I was posting more than the other people in this niche. Not only could the people who are the top dogs in this, they couldn't keep up because this was automated, but I was also pinging and basically just constantly tagging LG. And so that's how I got one of my first partnerships, even before Adobe. And I did about two major campaigns with LG, one small one, and it was just from this tester account, just constantly posting. And to be honest, if you guys scroll enough, I use the same like 30 images. This is the same one that I posted up here, and I just did that for a full 6 months to test. Anyway, any other questions? Tyler, good question. David, Arturo, Patricia. Let me look back in the comments. Oh, I know I do need to show you guys the hashtag remixer. Dun, dun. What is the one I have on my phone? All right, while I'm looking, let's see. Patricia, do you ever post your own UI UX work? How would clients know I can perform the job if I'm only curating? I'm always so confused how this works. That is a good ass question. Okay, because this is, every creative says this to me, every single one. All right, let's take a look at Ethan. Okay. And this is why I wanted you guys to shift in your mind the difference between pushing out your own work and facilitating a conversation and being known for an idea. Okay. And if that's too much of like a brain shift for you, think about your like a day job, right? You are the doer if you're like a UI UX designer, and then you have a manager, and then you have an executive, and then you have the CEO. The CEO can still claim your work because obviously that's his business. You're not claiming anybody's work. You are telling the world that you are about a specific idea. So when I was working with Ethan, we talked about how he wanted to be an identity designer and a web designer. And so I was like, okay, to be a voice in this space, there's no way that you can keep up with the demand that the audience that we're trying to basically have follow us or be in our community. It's very hard to keep up with demand personally as one person. You have the skill to do any of the work that you are putting out. Okay. So what I said was, not only are you doing yourself a favor by building a habit, but you're also, while finding things to curate, you're training your eye, you're seeing what's out there in the market. So you're training yourself. That's a thing for yourself. Okay. Thing for your audience is that they understand you as a person that they can go to for getting something that they want. So even if you were like, fuck the thought of doing work, right? Think about community. Let's say your audience wants to see beautiful things. If you're, and again, this is a different conversation. There's customers. There's different types of customers. There's people who need work done, and there's people who want to learn how to do the things that you're doing. So it's the student and the client. Those are two different types of customers. And you have to figure out who you're trying to appease. This is how, like, people on The Future, they jumped from doing client work to being design education. And that's a total different conversation. But the thing I want you guys to, or Patricia, in your case, since you're asking this question, think about how you want people to think about you, right? You are somebody who does branding and or is a UI UX designer. People need to know that you are about that. How are you telling the world that you are about UI and UX design? Are you writing articles? Are you showcasing or sharing really cool things that you see out in the world of in the UI UX world? How are you showing the people that you want to attract to you? How are you showing them that you're about your craft? Are you creating things on a daily basis? Are you showcasing the things that you think? Are you showcasing the things that you think are really cool? And by doing that, you get known for an idea. And when people know you for an idea, they come to you for answers, whether that's for work or thinking or asking you a specific question about what you shared. So I know that was a very long-winded answer, but it's marketing, getting people to understand that you are about a specific idea, and you're facilitating that conversation, right? There's marketers, there's designers, and there's authors, there's writers. But as designers, we can't just think that we are our work, right? We have to be able to have other skills to show others that we are very good at what we do. So in this case, we're using marketing, right? Using Instagram, social media platforms to show people and tell people that we are about UX design. When they come to you, are you going to say, oh, that wasn't my work, and by the way, I can't do that? I highly would say that even though that is not your work, you're building community by sharing in putting on other designers and saying basically that you love their work. But at the same time, you're basically saying that this is what you're about. This is what you have an eye for this. And that when someone comes to you, because you are constantly putting out this sort of content out, when they come to you, they will most likely, because this is what happens. Oh, I saw you posted this on Instagram or LinkedIn or any other platform. I saw you write about this. What do you know about doing this sort of design? And then that's when the conversation happens. They're not going to be like, oh, I saw this thing on your Instagram. I know it's not yours, and I don't want to work with you. If that's what they're thinking, obviously they're not going to contact you, and that's not someone you want to work with anyway. There's a lot more appreciative people than people who are going to say stupid shit. There's been one case in my entire time curating content that someone was like, can you take that down? It was somebody from Google, happily took it down. And this was when I was under like 10,000. It wasn't only until I hit like 20,000 that he came back and was like, can you put my stuff back up? Because like I said earlier, it's more than you. My strategy is about building community, building a network of other designers so that I can basically leverage and build a community. It's more than me. It's not just my work. It's about everybody else's work, how awesome it is, and how we can help each other learn to become better designers. So the value that I offer is, this is all the cool design out there, not just mine, because there's people better than me, and I can leverage and build a network that is larger than me, and I can meet new people that allows me to get into better situations. Just like I was able to get into partnerships with Adobe, Disney, Dannon. It was more than just my work. If you want to be a worker forever and just do design, then put out your own work. If that's all you want to do, it's just going to take a lot more time and resources to be able to keep up with the market demand. If you are curating content of design that is very similar to yours out there in the market, you are still supplying the market with something that's very similar you can supply. It's not lying. So I hope that helps, Patricia. But like, your question is not wrong. That is the number one question I get from every single person I coach that is creative, who is an artist, and even an entrepreneur, because they think it's stealing. But I want you to think about, and even everybody who's on here, right? I want you guys to think about, if someone saw your work, amazing, right? If in their mind they're like, wow, this is awesome, they share it to their own audience, you would say, thank you very much, I highly appreciate it. And of course, if they tag you and they give proper credit, you would say, thank you so much for appreciating my work and sharing this with your audience. That is the type of comments I get all the time. Thank you so much for even liking my work. Thank you so much for sharing it. Because Instagram feeds are very personal, and for somebody to share your work on their own feed is like, damn, they respected your stuff. So I just want you to think about it like that. Any other questions? And I really wish we could talk and it would be a lot more dialogue, because I know I'm talking more than you can type at once. Any other questions?
I have a question. How does the search bar function is? I mean, because other day I was looking to I don't know, a post of someone, and I got idea, and then I tried to find it, and I couldn't find it. So I mean, I see that it works for the name, it works for the description maybe, or the user ID, but I don't know if it works with the descriptions in every post.
Oh, yeah. To answer your question, it does not. So like a post, it doesn't work with, let's see. It doesn't work with anything in here.
Right.
The only thing that search can help find is a particular person, whether it's Ethan or this, right?
Yeah, just name and ID.
Yep. It helps find accounts, and it helps find content that is basically tagged with hashtags. So hashtags and specific accounts. That's all the search bar has.
Cool.
Cool. All right,
Great
ladies.
content.
Huh?
Great content.
Yes, anytime. All right. Patricia, you have another. When you post something that you never did, but a client contacts you, would you try to learn how to do it? and be honest about it. How do you feel about the stories resharing? How do you feel about the stories resharing the shares that make all the posts in the day? Oh, that is some hard. All right, let's start at the beginning. Okay, we'll start with the first part. So a client contacts me. They saw. Let's pretend we're Ethan. Or actually, fuck it. Let's go to me. So I get I don't even know where I'm at right now. All right, we'll say we're Ethan. Pretend this is me. So a client contacts me about this post. They're like, yo, I saw this was awesome. Cool. This is the thing that you can do. And this is why I say think larger than yourself. What you can do is you say, oh, okay, cool. This person contacted me and they like this sort of aesthetic. You can try, and this is why I say you have to understand what it is that you want to do with your narrative. If your goal is to get clients, only post things that if you're worried about that, post things that you feel that you can do. And there's two ways to go about this. You either do it yourself, or the person that made this, you talk with the client and you say, hey, yes, we can absolutely do this for you. And you're not lying, but you can do one of two things. You can either do it yourself and try to learn it. And if you feel confident you can do that, hey, you can do it. Or if you want to be really smart, you can be like, okay, what's this person? These people made this. Man, there's a lot of names on this. You can literally look them up. I highly doubt we're going to get them. Oh, okay, cool. You can look them up and see if you can kind of get into a conversation with them and be like, hey, how much would it cost to get you to do work with me, but for a client? So instead of being the designer, you're the middle man or the middle person in the transaction. And that's how you start actually scaling what it is that you're doing. Again, if you want to do all the work yourself, you can learn to do it, or you can just tell the client no. You can just say, hey, be straight up. I didn't do that. I do that all the time. I even mention when people are like, yo, you did great work on this. I'm like, that's not mine. And so one of the two things is you can say no to the client if you don't feel comfortable doing that work, and you can discuss what you can do for them instead. And two is if you really think that you can do that work, but not your own, and you think you can outsource it, start looking at the people, like really the people that you're curating their work, start to understand like how much they charge, how often they're free, so that when you get inquiries about this certain type of work, you're like, yeah, we can do this. I know 3 to 5 people that can do this type of work for the budget you're really thinking about. Yep, exactly. So this is a whole nother ball game. Like people, when I talk to them, they're like, me, freelance, my work. But when you play this game, like all the people that I share, right? They know me because I've basically built a relationship with. They're like, Brandon will post my work. They send me work. They're like, hey man, I just came out with this this new design. Can you post it? And the thing is your network becomes so big, right? 77,000 people. You not only make friendships, but I can send people, like if I can't fulfill it, you can literally send work to the person that, okay, let me back up. If somebody inquired about this design, right? They're like, Brandon, this is awesome. I don't have time to deal with it. I don't have time to outsource it. I can be like, yo, Daniel, so-and-so is inquiring about work that you've done. Here's a client. And that is how you build relationships, build friends. That's what I'm saying. Think less about yourself, think about your audience, and building a network. So I hope that helps, and why it really helps to think larger in larger capacity in terms of community and audience versus thinking about yourself, because there's so much more potential in doing stuff like this in resharing, because people find you because you reposted their stuff and you become known for something more than your work. So I think that is it, ladies and gentlemen. I'll take one more question if there is one. And if not, I hope you guys had some major value. Do not forget about the course. The course is like imagine this, but times 55. So if you're really wanting to step up your game, actually learn not only how to build brand, because I covered the basics here, but how to actually become a brand ambassador, how to monetize your brand, the other side of brand building. I really do think, but I know that this will get you to where you need to be able to build that career control. So any last questions?
I've got a quick one for you. This has to do with, I know that you mentioned that you were posting automatically like 3 times a day for that tester account.
Yeah.
How often do you post now, and do you think it like has a direct impact on how quickly you're able to grow?
That's a good question. So now it's a lot less. I post between 1 and 2 times a day, and this is just because a lot of I'm just doing different stuff. So and plus at the time I was automating a lot of stuff. Instagram cracked down on a lot of things. Tyler and I were talking about this a little bit earlier. A lot of the things that you could get away with on Instagram do not work anymore. That's not what I cover in my course. I talk about the things that will last the test of time. And so right now, and we'll talk about this. So instead of what I'm doing, because I'm not doing the optimal, I'm doing a lot more business than trying to run more traffic on my Instagram. So we'll talk about Chris Do, right? He runs about 2 to 3 posts a fucking day. I can't go on Instagram without seeing his shit first.
Right. I actually met with Chris Do in Florida last week, and he was actually sharing that it's part of the strategy to be able to grow about 10K followers. He was trying to get that done over 2 weeks, was able to do it in one. But that he was able to calculate through the analytics, taking a look at with the consistency he was going, how many posts did he have to go and create on a weekly basis to go and multiply that over time.
Yeah, the more you post in a day, the more eyeballs you get. If I post 3 times a day, I get 3 times as many eyeballs than I would if I just post just one.
And do you ever go back in and, for example, take out content that you don't think is quality or not to that specific threshold or quality level that you like to keep it at?
I've heard that. I have done that, but I'm not super picky about it. Like I know people, and I think Chris has done it himself. But for me in particular, I have not archived any of my stuff. As you guys see, I still have 18,000 posts still up. So I would like if you're talking about growth, I would just think about the things that we talked about today, the content strategy, and how often you're able to produce and reshare that high quality content. Just like Chris was saying, the more that you post, the more eyeballs you'll have, because it's spread across, and the more engagement your account has in just overall, the higher priority Instagram gives you as an account in terms of how many people it shows your account to, your content to. It's a very big difference. So if I was able to post as much as I was, I most definitely would. But my priorities are a little bit different now. So this is taking a back seat so I can do a little bit more in my business. And right now I'm in the midst of creating processes to allow me to get back to that level.
Nice one. Thank you for sharing.
Anytime. All right, guys. So that is it for me. The link is in the chat if you want it. I will be sending this to you guys, the recording of this to your email, in addition to the link if you guys want to check it out with the code Building Brand. So, all right, guys, thank you very much for showing up, and I will see you on the gram. Peace. Let's see. Oh, there's one more message. Let me see. Oh, bye, guys.